Hello, and welcome to Recollections. My guest today has among her keepsakes a Victorian toy, a pair of platform sole shoes, and a lucky charm bracelet. Once hailed as a thinking man's punk, she's the talented singer and actress, Toyah Wilcox.
Hello.
And Toyah, not many of my guests have brought their underwear along, so I'm sure there's a good story about that pair of red knickers.
Well, I haven't brought them along out of any form of disrespect, but when I was making the Ebony Tower, it was a great laughing matter that throughout the whole of the film, I had to wear red underwear. And I got on very well with the makeup department, two wonderful ladies who became very close friends. And at the end of shoot party, they both very coyly came up to me and they said, "We bought you a little present." And it was in a tiny little package, and I unwrapped it. And there they were, far too small for me to wear because I have generous English measurements. But it's lovely because it's from a French Marks and Spencer's.
In fact, though, it was a memorable film because you worked with Sir Laurence Olivier, didn't you?
Very memorable.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the first time you ever met him?
Yes, I was in the Granada buildings. I'd passed the audition, and it was the first read-through. And this very charming elderly gentleman came up to me and asked me where the gents was. And I suddenly realized it was him. So I guided him to the gents, and then I went to find the rehearsal room. And we officially met over the script, as it were. And he was charming, absolutely wonderful.
Were you quite nervous at the idea, though, of working with such a great actor? Did it worry you a bit?
I think I was more nervous about working with the media of film. I'd just come off stage from doing a season with Trafford Tansey about female wrestlers, and I'd lost all my feminine grace. And I was very, very worried about working on film because film, your acting can be quite minute on film, and on stage you're huge. And I was more worried about coming down to that level. With Lord Olivier, there was never any problems because he makes you instantly at ease. He's a charmer. He's a born charmer.
But nevertheless, you actually had to strip. I mean, you most of that
Yes.
film, you were sort of semi-naked and so on. Now, did that worry you a bit?
Oh, it worried me totally because even though you're in character, you're ego-wise, you're very aware of all the things that you feel insecure about. So yes, it was nerve-wracking, but on the first day, the director stripped too, which was so hysterical, we asked him to put his clothes back on. And when it came down to the big strip, Lord Olivier was great. He was very charming. He looked straight out. He didn't, when he talked to you sideways, and was full of discretion and very nice. But it's not something I'd like to make a career out of, because I don't feel confident like that. And people remember you for that rather than for the quality of your work.
Because you've been acting a long time, and in fact, some years ago, you acted with Katharine Hepburn, another great actress.
Yes.
What were your sort of lasting impressions of her?
I felt very safe with her. I had very bad knowledge of camera technique when I made The Cornice Green. So she gave me lots of advice about performing to the camera, but ignoring the camera at the same time, which is so valuable to a 19-year-old, which
sure.
I was then.
So you were lucky, actually, to sort of have that chance to do it. In fact, your next little item is to do with luck, because it's a lucky charm bracelet.
Yes.
What's the story behind that?
Well, this is, I find this a slightly melancholy story. I was with my mum, and I was about 7 years old, and she was going through the attic. And she got out this suitcase full of clothes. And among the clothes was this little charm bracelet. And it's silver. I don't know how old it is. She said it was hers, but I've suddenly realized that there's a Taurus symbol on. And I'm Taurus, my brother's Taurus, and my mother's Libra. So I don't know whether it's hers or her mother's or what, because my mother's never talked about her family. I think she lost her family when she was quite young. So I said to Mum, I love it, because it was glittery and trinkety, and I didn't have any jewellery at all, and she said I could have it. The most influential part of this is that it has a sphinx on it, and I've always, from as far back as I can remember, been in love with Egypt and Egyptology, so it meant a lot to me. And
are you, because your mother was rather sort of mysterious about her family, did that make her rather remote figure for you, and are you not terribly close?
In childhood, we were very close. I wasn't a very well child. I was born with a few kind of physical defects, and I depended on my mother a lot because I had to literally learn how to walk, learn how to speak, and learn how to read, and it was all very, very slow. And I was always ill in the stomach. I couldn't digest food very well. So I was totally physically and emotionally dependent on my mother. So we were very close. And then I think it was when I realized, I one day woke up and I suddenly realized that there's a big world out there and I want to be part of that world, that I myself grew away from the family background.
Yeah. What about your father? Because you have a little toy there that reminds you of him.
Oh, yes.
This is a Victorian toy,
yes,
right?
I love this. My father and my mother were very into antiques, and I went into a junk shop with my father and found this. And I must say, I'm not sure whether I was with Mum or Dad when I found this, but I always relate this to my father. For me, this sums up Christmas and the security of Christmas and the fire burning and all those safe feelings that a family gives you. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. It's a little bird on a
Was he
string.
always very supportive with you?
My
even
father,
through your sort of difficult times.
He was a disciplinarian, but at the same time, he was the most anarchic person I've ever known. High moral standards, but at the same time broke every rule that irritated me. When it came down to going to school and keeping those rules like indoor and outdoor shoes and changing knickers after gym, all that, my father wasn't interested in that. He was more interested in the worldly vision I had inside me of being part of the world.
Communicated well.
Yes.
Well, you've got a couple more things from your childhood.
Yes.
The little tiny locket.
This is the first thing I ever bought with my pocket money. It's a tiny gold locket. It was 12 and 6, and I saved up my pocket money, I think, for a year. And Mum took me into the jewellers, and I said, I want that. And I bought it, and it opens up. And inside it, I keep a little ball of fur from a rabbit I had. Now, the rabbit was called Snowy and was my best friend for 2 years. And I didn't let anyone near this rabbit. In the morning, I'd get up and he'd be in the garden and I'd call him. And he'd come in the house, up the stairs, and get into bed with me till Mum chucked us out. And I have a little picture of him. It's a terribly grubby transparency.
Oh, and
I was
this is
11.
the Tilly Poo Toyah.
Yes.
Yes, it is. It's a very old little picture.
Well, it suffered many toffee, sticky
And
fingers.
you've kept Snowy all the way through?
Well, Snowy was such a friend, and he was a relationship with an animal that some old women have with their dogs. It's something that you never let go of.
Right.
And he actually bit anyone that came near me. I was the only one that could go near him. Very close.
What about school, then? I mean, if you were sort of thinking, well, there's a big world out there, you were not very successful at school.
No, what I didn't like about school was the laws of femininity that were being put upon me. You had to learn to knit and had to learn to sew because one day you'll have babies. And I never felt I'd have children, and I never felt that I'd get married early. I always wanted to have a career. And because I wanted to act and sing, I was thought of as a bit of a loser because these weren't careers, these were dreams.
Were you a bit of a rebel? I mean,
Yes,
were you
awful.
naughty at school?
I was absolutely awful. I was dyslexic, very slow. At one point, I was almost genius at mathematics, which is quite common in dyslexia. But by the time I was 11, that started to fade pretty quickly. No one could understand me. No one got on with me. Purely my own fault. I disliked any petty rules, such as you can't go through that door. You have to go through that door. And
you were thrown out of the art class, weren't you? Now, was that deliberate on your part?
I can show you why I was thrown out of the art class.
Oh, she hasn't showed me this.
I only wanted to draw gravestones or things like this. I had an absolute obsession with death, which I think very much is part of the growing up. This is one of my first drawings of my view of the world. And it was the dome. I called it the dome.
Of the children.
And I carried on drawing science fiction type things, things that carried on into my working life as a singer, because I found it all very important for my image.
And what about the book? Because you actually said you had difficulty with reading. In fact, you were dyslexic, weren't you?
Yes. So what I used to do, it made my mind very visual, because I couldn't think in letters or numbers. I thought in images. So my mind was very creative on that level. And in fact, I've got a poem here that isn't part of the vocabulary I made up, but I used it on an album that became a platinum album. And it's called The Journey. So I'll quickly read it to you. Can you bear it?
Yes, I can.
It's called I was 12 when I wrote this, and it goes, we scanned their skies with stardust eyes and kissed the rainbow mind. So we jumped right down and played the clown to their glittering kind. They clapped and cheered, it was mighty weird, but we had to go home. So we went back to the ship for our cosmic trip right through their dome. On through their skies, we tell no lies, we were all upon our own. And I had this obsession about aliens and being alien.
Oh, and that came in through your career afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, part of this sort of rebellion actually came out into your clothes because you actually then started to wear outrageous clothes as well. And we've got these strawberry shoes. Now, I used to wear platform shoes. I mean,
I think these are a
what
work
was the
of
story
art.
behind these?
Well, when I was 12, I started wearing platform shoes, much to the dismay of my family. Because I'm small, I'm 4'11", when the platforms came in, it meant the world to me. Boys started looking at me. But by the time I was 14, my taste had become more exotic. And these are made out of wood and leather, and they're studded. And these were my best.
I mean, like, was it possible to wear them? I mean,
Well, yes, it's an art form to wear a platform shoe. You have to have very strong ankles and very good balance. But after 2 years, I could dance and run in these.
so you used to go out in them?
Oh, I used to go to the disco in them. I was the envy of the whole of Birmingham that I could wear these. Most of my girlfriends, who thought I was utterly mad and quite justified, were very envious that I could actually get away with wearing these. They suited my personality. I danced all evening. I'd go to a disco from 6 till about midnight and not stop dancing and wear these at the same time.
What did your parents think, though? I mean, they'd sent you to this rather sort of good school and so on.
They were very dismayed. By that time, I was quite weird. I was always wearing black. I'd started dyeing my hair secretly. I had a kind of blue-black colour, pointed fringe, pointed side, and a shaved head at the back, so I looked like Dr. Spock. So by this time, my mother, I think at one point, rumoured, had a word with the Samaritans about me. I was very, very insular. I'd lock myself in my room. I ate on my own. I cooked my own food and had to be left alone.
Well, you see, you were growing up. You were quite young in the 60s, so you weren't actually sort of the people that were sort of flashing around and enjoying the 60s, but you were growing up. Were you aware of the 60s?
Oh, yes, because my sister was 8 years older than me. My brother was 5 years older than me. And it was wonderful to witness my sister being a part of the 60s, my parents rebelling against the 60s, and me as a young kind of, I suppose I was about 9, just witnessing the miniskirts and the sexual revolution. And my brother used to smuggle me into midnight movies in Worcester, where we'd go at the weekends. 12 o'clock, the cinemas would show late night movies. And they were soft porn. Yeah. And I used to go with all his friends, and they drove around in army jeeps. So at 2 in the morning, we'd come out of the cinema. I'd be drunk, because alcohol would pass around quite freely. And we'd go off and we'd drive around the chalk pits at Breeden Hill in these jeeps, having a wild time till the sun came up.
So you didn't miss the 60s at all?
No, then I'd go back to bed and Mum would wake me up at 10, thinking I'd been in all night. And I'd say, hi, Mum. I'd have a hangover.
Who were your pop heroes then?
Mark Bolan was my first one, because I think what I recognised in him was the visual aspect. Vision always meant a lot to me. The glitter teardrop he had, the corkscrew hair, the platforms he wore, the songs he wrote about influenced me greatly. They were all about Ran, this planet called Ran.
How did you actually get into pop then yourself?
Well, I was at the National Theatre. I was 18, and I joined the National Theatre Company for 9 months and formed the band when I was there. Because coming from Birmingham, I was very naive. London terrified me. I knew nothing, but my naivety carried me through because it gave me a braveness. I wasn't sensitive to bitchery and to people digging the dagger in your back, which is very commonplace when you're a newcomer in the industry. So I just ploughed straight into a room, say that Peter Hall was directing him, and said, oh, I hear you play guitar, will you come and write with me? And it was literally as simple as that.
Well, you brought with you a selection of your costumes. Now, did you know what you wanted, and did you help design them?
It's interesting. My main designer was Melissa Catherine. I met her at a party, and I didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. And I said, I'm looking for a type of costume that is made by hand, designed in the mind, but depicts childhood, I suppose. And she came up with this one. This is one of her first ones. I'll hold it against me. It's hand-painted cotton, and it's cotton because cotton lasts, and I was going on the road for years at the time, you know, and it had to last on stage with kids pulling it apart and things. And this goes over a black dress, and I view this as a piece of jewellery, because it is an accessory, and it's based on the Egyptian theme again. It's all the serpents and the snakes and things. So there's that one. She also did this one, which I wore on stage again. This is hand-painted suede with gold studs, and that's a jacket.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it?
She was very good at that.
Yes, because you often get the feeling that stage clothes look great in the lights, but don't bear looking at closely. Well, that's absolutely gorgeous.
Also, they're one-offs, which is very important. Now, this isn't Melissa Kaplan. This is an Italian designer. It's hand-signed. I'm not very into extravagance, because I think these came from the simplicity of Melissa's mind. She's very intelligent, but it was for free.
I understand.
And she didn't charge hundreds of thousands of pounds to make them. She created them and enjoyed creating them. This was £500, and I thought it was extortionate. But it's a neck scarf, and it is very beautiful art.
Oh, it is beautiful.
So I treated myself to that. But I treasure Melissa's more than anything in the world because of the heart that they came from. I'll show you this one next. This is a rubber dress. This came from a young designer I found in a market called Hyper.
Like the Toyah with the
yeah. Now it's latex rubber, and you wear it like a glove. It's incredibly tight. It takes 2 people to zip you in, and you can't wear anything underneath. And once you put it on, you polish it with Mr. Sheen, and it becomes very glass-like, like black water, and it reflects everything. The only problem is when you get hot, you sweat, and then it slides off, which happened to me in Germany 2 years ago, much to the joy of the audience.
You'd wear those with the big boots, would you, as well?
Yes, these thigh boots, because I've got lousy short legs, thigh boots are my saving grace. And I wear those on stage most of the time. And the heels, very important to me. And I've learned how to run and dance in them, you know, usual story. This one is one of my designs. I had this design for Hammersmith Odeon. It's called, I call it the Picasso print. I wanted something that when we opened on stage, the spotlight could be on this only. And then the spotlight grew, and there we were, standing there. So this is hand-painted cotton.
So really, it's a combination of the actual designs and the effect on stage and so on.
I think image, fashion, and music go hand in hand. Another piece I'd like to show you is this. This was the baseball bat. It's based on the skeletal structure of a baseball helmet, and I had a suit of armor made out of red perspex with huge shoulders that I wore on video and on stage. And this is a headdress. But because I was shooting the video so quickly, the designer, Simon, had to have it cast in bronze, because it's the only way he could get it to me overnight. So this is actually a bronze. And then on the road later, I had a replica made in chrome with the microphone in the jaw piece.
Tell me, when you're on stage, Toyah, and you're sort of in your black, you know, shiny dress and your high heel shoes, it's a very sort of sexy, brash, you're queen of punk and all that. And I mean, do you feel very powerful when you're whipping that audience up into a frenzy?
Well, these costumes are symbols of power. I think that there is part of femininity that is very symbolic of power. It can go against you. There's a story when I played in Bath, I think it was 1979, and the National Front used to recruit at our gigs because my band was Jewish, and it would send us into kind of war with them, and we whipped this Bath audience up into a frenzy. There was about 5,000 in this hall, and they were sig-heiling at us, and I couldn't get the band to carry on playing because they just didn't want to know. So my guitarist went in, was fighting away. I went in to save him, and in the end, this kind of gang disappeared from the gig, and we carried on with the gig, and then we realized they'd gone off to get the rest of the NF in the area, who were by this time surrounding the building, and the police had to come and get us out, and we crawled out of the loo window. But that's the negative side of it all.
Do you feel a bit responsible, though? For...
Oh, you have a huge responsibility. You are setting an example within your life to these people. You're doing something that they probably would desire to do too. And you have to keep standards. You have to set examples. There's undoubtedly...
As you say, there is another side to fans, and we've got some lovely things here that fans have sent you, haven't we? Got some rings.
Now these, I wore all the time. I don't wear them so much now. These are a symbol to my fans of me, as well as the ankh. The ankh is the Egyptian cross, tiny little thing I have there. These are eye rings. They're made out of glass eyes, set in silver. Most of my fans wear these. It's a standard uniform. I see this as the third eye. It's the all-seeing eye. It's the eye that sees creation and is creative. Some people say it sees evil and wards off evil. This is intriguing. This came in a hollow book from a princess in Saudi Arabia who bought all my albums, but because of the Saudi Arabian laws, wasn't allowed to tell anyone. And it's a gold ring. I don't know what the stones are. They're blue and red. Beautiful. Very beautiful. And she said when she sent it, please don't write back to me because the palace would be annoyed. I checked her out and it was genuine.
Good grief.
And she was a genuine princess. Little Toyah ring from a very loyal fan. Also, I'd like to tell you about this. The diamond in this was left for me at the stage door of the Mermaid Theatre by an anonymous man who said, thank you for everything you've done for me. Your work has kept me going.
Thank you very much, anonymous man.
And it's a diamond. So I had that made into a ring.
And that's beautiful.
This is phenomenal. Made by a fan. I think it's based on copper and enamel. It's the beetle. What do they call the beetles in Egyptology? Can't remember. But anyway, it's Egyptian. I wear it very rarely because it is delicate and I treasure it. And it's something I'll keep for the rest of my life because the workmanship that's gone into this is
Are you very
outstanding.
touched then by fans who really love you and sort of send you and make you presents? Or do it worry you a bit? There's a bit of...
At one point it upset me because I didn't feel I was being loyal to what they saw in me. And I felt guilt, actually, because I'm a private person. I'm not in private life, I'm quiet. I'm not a rock and roller that goes to wild parties and things like that. But I am very much into mythology and the right side of a cult, which is what this represents to me, purely as a hobby. So,
but you said that you're quiet now, but this is the new Toyah, isn't it? I mean, in fact, there was a stage in your life that you ran away from what you were, and that's when you met Robert, your husband.
Yes.
What were you running away from? What did you want to get rid of?
I think basically the society I was born into. I don't really believe in the class structures. I'd like to see everyone born with equal chances.
But weren't you also wanting to run away from the lifestyle you were leading, the sort of the
oh,
drinking,
you mean
the travelling?
within the pop world?
Yes, the pop world. I mean, you've changed your image a lot.
Yes.
You know.
Well, it was exhausting. And also, you're always on a pedestal. And there came a time where I just wanted to scream and be really angry and be foul to everyone. And I felt I had no right to be like that. And also, because people were seeing me as being a little bit godlike when I felt like Joe Public all the time, it started to, it does mess you up in there.
So what is the new Toyah then? What have we got now?
Well, the new Toyah isn't that new because I still feel very connected with this. What I do feel at the moment that it's not appropriate for me to be like this. In 1981, it was appropriate for me to be like that. And a time will come when it will be appropriate for me to be like that again. And I just felt I had...
Right now you're enjoying marriage to Robert.
Well, we don't see each other that often because of my work, because I'm on stage every night in the West End. And then when I'm not on stage, I tend to be working on music. But what I felt was wrong was that I was living this glamorous pop star life when I didn't know music well enough. So now I'm studying music. It's very boring, very academic, but I'm studying singing, studying playing the piano, and studying dress design. So when I get my band together again, I will really know what I'm doing. I won't feel a victim of everyone around me.
Toyah, We've enjoyed you very much indeed, and we look forward to all these new things that are going to happen. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it from us all here. Goodbye.